फास्टेस्ट क्रिकेट स्कोर अपडेट्स या सबसे डिटेल्ड स्टैट्स,
क्रिकेट के अंदर बाहर की खबरें
या हेल्दी डिबेट्स,
सबसे एक्यूरेट एनालिसिस
या फैंस का क्रेज, सबके लिए एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म, क्योंकि क्रिकेट मतलब क्रिकेट नेक्स्ट।
Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us here on Cricket Next. I'm Shivani Gupta, and today we'll be building up to the Women's Premier League. This is a tournament. Which is being conducted for the first time this year. So 2023, starting for March 4th, is going to be the first season of what is being touted as one of the biggest game changers in women's cricket globally. We've seen the kind of excitement the WPL has garnered, the kind of excitement from franchises, from sponsors, from players themselves. The auctions were a great hit. And now we're going to sit down and just discuss and possibly compare it to the IPL too, which will be unfair, but just to give our viewers a little bit of perspective where the WPL is starting from and what it has to compete with as a model, which the IPL has already established itself with, and how much time could it take to get to that level, and if it can get to that level, and whether the first season itself can give us an indication that the business model of the WPL can be successful. When we talk about business of cricket, who better than our resident sports editor of Network 18 Group, K. Shriniwas Rao, who's joining us. He tracks this very, very closely, is an expert on this. Srini, I think your hair have gone grey because you've been tracking the business of cricket over the last few years.
I guess, and it's still waiting to go grayer, I guess, with the developments
Yes.
that are happening.
Well, I don't know why he says that, but just jokes apart, this is a very interesting aspect of cricket today, Srini, and we cannot escape it. Die-hard sports fans like me would always say I'm more of the pool of thought that, it's what happens on the ground that matters. I'm one of those fans. For me, nothing else really matters. Everything is surround sound for me. The only thing that excites me is what happens on the field for any sport, not just for cricket. But
Right.
the reality is the times that we live in, the business of sport or of any league is extremely important. And because the IPL has been so successful and mind-bogglingly successful, to be one of the most successful and richest leagues in the world now across sports. That is why I think as we build up with just 5 days to go for the WPL start, we have to sit and discuss the business of WPL as well. Let me first begin by talking about the sponsors themselves. Generally, in sports, especially in India, we've talked about how sponsorship is a big deal and how, the sponsors are the ones who actually make the sport go round because that's how let's say the federations, the associations make money. That's how players also make money, individual or tournament sponsors. So if you look at the sponsorship that has come on board for the WPL, first good, great indication, the Tata Group that won the rights for the male league has also got the rights for the women's league. We've also got the BCCI recently announced names like Dream 11, Amul, Siet. All of these are big brands. They've been associated with men's cricket for a very long time, and they've shown interest for women's league as well. Do you think this in itself is a great starting point for the WPL?
Yeah, I mean, see, you mentioned Tatas, so let's start with them.
Hmm.
Uh, Tatas were sponsoring the men's IPL title, so
Hmm.
probably by virtue of already being in that space, it was only about extending that courtesy. I mean, look at it this way: it would have been bad PR for Tatas to not come forward and do
Hmm.
something for women's cricket, right? When you're there, then you'll be seen as someone only who wants to support men's cricket, right? So
Yeah.
I think that was, that courtesy extension was expected. But that said, look at the value. I'm more impressed with the value, the figure, the number that Tata's put on paper. At 35 crore per game, that's the value that Tatas are giving. Okay. It is just 5 crore less from what DLF had offered 15 years ago for
For the
IPL
IPL.
per season. Per
Hmm.
season, it was 40 crore per season. It was a 200 crore deal, right? This one is just 165 crore a deal, which is 35 crore per year, per season, right?
Hmm.
Now, matches in IPL were 60.
Yeah.
WPL matches are around 24, right?
Yeah.
So
The
less than
exposure is
50%
much
of
lesser.
matches. Yes,
Yeah.
and that's why I think the value that has come from a title rights perspective is huge. And then
But this
yeah,
is
I mean,
also figuring in the inflation, right? I mean, what was the cost 15 years ago is different today. And also the consumption that is going to be taking place on the digital space, for example, more targeted, etc.
yes, and they also must have kind of see, it's also an extension of the brand IPL, right? Three of the men's
Mm-hmm.
franchises are here, so that
Mm-hmm.
present IPL presence just about extends. And see, personally, I feel that Tata's took a call on this based on the fact that they have to now figure if they want to continue with men's IPL post 2024 2023. They
Mm-hmm.
what paying for title in men's IPL is only until the 23 season, right? So if I had to take, my gut tells me Tatas are not going to continue with the men's IPL after the
Mm-hmm.
2023 season is over, and because three of the big franchises are here already in WPL, I think
Mm-hmm.
they stay invested where the ecosystem is concerned.
But do you
And
think this is also because the fact that the board, even the BCCI in itself, carries so much weight and heft that anything that the BCCI is launching, it has that kind of stability and backing, and therefore big brands will also feel more comfortable in associating with the brand because ultimately, this is money. You don't put your money where your mouth is unless you're very, very confident, isn't it?
it's
It's
see,
all sounds very good supporting women's cricket and all, but if the numbers weren't going to back it, I don't think the big brands would still take the bite.
of course, there is no doubt. See, at the end of the day, if you cut through all the clutter, then the
Hmm.
one thing that matters is does this make business sense, right?
Yeah.
See, courtesies and dosti yari can only happen to a limit. Beyond that, the business has to speak for itself. That, and you mentioned BCCI, and everybody comes to the table. It's always with Indian cricket and BCCI. It's the opening scene of Godfather, where there's a marriage in the family, and the host is keeping a check of the people who have come to wish him on his daughter's wedding.
Hmm.
So it is important. I'm starting something new. Are you with
Hmm.
me
Are
or
you with
not
me?
with me? Kind of that kind of, yeah. And by the
Okay.
way, Shivani,
Hmm.
one more thing to add here. See how
Hmm.
immensely have people who associated with IPL in those initial years. Okay,
Hmm.
see how immensely they benefited.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It was like, till today, so many
Hmm.
title sponsors have come and gone, but we still remember DLF, and DLF themselves have admitted that they
Hmm.
benefited so immensely, and it was so satisfying, those 5 years association with the IPL at the start. So maybe there is,
That's why I
yeah,
said, whatever the BCCI touches,
yeah,
it has a certain amount of backing and stability. And you've
yeah,
seen brands grow from where they were 15 years ago till today. And we all know how some brands have, got that mental space and that, yeah, advantage over others and become household names with so much recall value because of the cricket, either being associated
exactly,
with the IPL or with cricket otherwise, of
exactly,
the men's cricket.
exactly,
So for a brand, obviously, the more opportunities you have, the greater it is. But it is a
right,
good sign, I would say, that the same quality of brands are coming on board.
right,
Yes, you're right. The brands also want to make the right noise about the fact
right,
that they're not just there for male cricket, they're also going to be there at the ground level for female cricket as well.
right,
And there can be nothing more exciting than the WPL.
right.
Srini, I want to talk to you a little bit about, for example, now we've taken care of the sponsorship part, and that's a great sign. But let's break down as we build up to the WPL on what each team is paying right now and how they hope to make their money, right? The IPL model is almost replicated as far as the WPL is concerned. The figures differ, right? So
Yeah.
let's say each team spent about over the five franchises. Obviously, franchises are less. Over the five franchises, you've got the team spending on an average 1,000 crores to get the team
So
set up.
so I just kept the figures with me, the
Yeah,
exact figures with me. So the total money that is coming to BCCI from the sale of five teams over a period of 10 years is 4,669 crore, right?
mm,
That is divided by, Adani Group bought the Ahmedabad franchise with 1,289 crores. Mumbai Indians, India Wind Sports Private Limited bought the Mumbai franchise for 912.9 crore. GMR JSW bought the Delhi franchise for 810. Capri Label got the Lucknow franchise for 757. Diageo got Bangalore for 901. If you add all these, you get 4,669 crores, right? This money will have to be paid over a period of 10
10 years.
years. Yeah. So basically, for it's literally 467 crore approximate is what BCCI is going to be earning per year.
Per year. And then
Yeah.
you look at the broadcast rights, which, as a lot of our viewers would be aware of, did come to Sports 18. You can watch, obviously, the WPL being broadcasted live and exclusively on Sports 18, also on the Geo Cinema platform. And
Yeah.
that went for 951 crores, right? That was for
5 years.
5 years as well. So if you look at that, you divide those 1,000 crores, let's
So
say
that
you.
also I kind of did the math on that. You
Mm,
divide 951 crores to be paid over a period of 5 years, you get
mm,
190.2 crore.
mm.
Which is 951 divided by 5. Yeah, 190.2
190.
crore is what goes per year. What comes to BCCI per year? So for the first 3 years, 80% of this money, so 190 into 3, 570.6 crore is the money that comes over the first 3 years. And in the
Hmm.
first 3 years, the arrangement is 80% of the revenue coming in from the broadcast right. 80% will be divided between
Between the
the
five
franchisees.
franchises.
20% will be kept by BCCI. So 80% of this is around 456 crore.
Hmm.
456 crore will be divided by five franchisees. That is 91.2 crore per franchise for the first 3 years.
So you look at the cost that the franchises are giving to the BCCI per year to establish the franchise, plus what they make from the first year onwards itself, from the broadcasting rights alone, the central broadcasting rights alone. I'm not adding the local franchises sponsorships, also the gate receipts. Although in this case, obviously, all the matches are being played in Mumbai alone, so maybe not the same formula as the IPL. But if you look at the local sponsorships, which will be jersey sponsorships, etc., and some partnerships that brands, franchises will do with brands, roughly, if you look at it, Srini, the teams are making back almost as much that they're putting on the first year from the first year itself, isn't
Yeah,
it? So that's a
yeah.
great model.
Yeah, so see, the obviously the pressure is on the broadcaster here because it's the
Hmm.
broadcaster who's written the check, right?
Hmm.
And then of course how BCCI helps build this property over a period of time, and that time will tell. But from a franchise's perspective, right now this is a win-win. Especially remember, especially from a men's franchise perspective. Sorry,
Hmm.
those who have bought men's franchises, those who have invested in
Hmm.
WPL,
Hmm.
Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai. Look at Mumbai. Mumbai is in the men's ecosystem. It is easily making in excess of 400 crore.
Hmm.
And plus, as we just noticed, Mumbai bought this franchise for 900 odd crores. They're getting back 91.2 crore approximately from television rights over the first 3 years, right? So whatever franchise fee they are paying per year, it is coming back through broadcast. Okay.
Hmm.
And they'll be happy to kind of spend money that they are earning in the men's IPL, kind of reinvest that back in women's cricket.
Hmm.
What are your expenses here? Your expenses are operations and logistics. Now
Hmm.
remember,
And obviously the
MI
players'
take
cost, which they've
and
already,
players cost, yeah,
the
and
players'
players
contract.
cost, players contract, yeah. So your major expenses would be the players contracts, operations, logistics. Now for a team like MI, which is anyways planning a 2 month exercise from an operational and logistical standpoint for a men's team, they
Hmm.
have to just include another month of those expenses from a women's. See, for Gujarat Giants, it will be a difficult proposition because they are
Hmm.
new to this business. For Capri
Hmm.
Global, it might be a difficult proposition initially because they are new to the business. But for an existing men's IPL franchise who've been doing this for the last 15 years, see, they know how best to plan logistics, how best to go about with their operations.
Hmm.
So all of that will add up. All those small things are going to add up, and this is a
Hmm.
win-win for them.
Yeah. So we've talked about the franchises also now. We've talked about, of course, the board, the BCCI itself, how it's been able to get sponsors on board. But you raised a very important question, which is of the broadcaster. Let's come to the broadcaster now.
Yeah.
I come to that question, Srini, also because we've just seen the World Cup, the World Cup finish for the women's teams. And there was a little bit of complaint that was coming while the World Cup was going on, which is that it didn't garner as much attention. It wasn't garnering as much viewership. At least on digital, we know exactly how many people are watching. Do you think the WPL broadcasters would have looked at it with some concern?
First of all, yeah, time zones also matter. Okay, where it
Hmm.
is happening. Second, we have understood and realized that any sort of franchise sport happening from in the India market, especially cricket,
Hmm.
franchise
Hmm.
cricket in India will have a different charm. The whole idea of an Australian women's cricketer, kind of an Indian women's cricketer sharing the same stage
Hmm.
together and being part of the
Hmm.
same team, obviously it'll have some kind of a greater effect to it. So
Hmm.
now the important thing here, Shivani, is how does the BCCI go about packaging this product?
Exactly. Yeah.
Remember the IPL in its initial years when Lalit was here,
Hmm.
it wasn't just a result of the cricket that you saw on the field at prime time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was also about how it was packaged as this larger than life tournament that is happening, and people were in awe watching team owners wearing their Armanis and Gucci's, like strutting all around. Kind of it was awe inspiring.
Yeah, so there was a
To
lot of star power basically. I remember
Yes.
two things when the IPL started. One was the
uh
star power. Everybody there were obviously the likes of Shah Rukh Khan, there's the likes of the Ambanis and others, and there were a lot of other stars from Bollywood associated with some of the teams. Then
yeah.
a lot of the sections of the entertainment industry wanted to be seen at the IPL, because of the franchises involved and all that. I remember the other big thing that everybody talked about for years, Srini, were the cheerleaders. I mean, how many years have we debated the cheerleaders at IPL
Yeah.
matches?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those were all things that were done and they were being witnessed for the first time. So there was a certain level of star power and innovation involved. But that was 15 years ago. Do you think the WPL can throw up some innovation as well?
Shwani, honestly, if you ask me here, I have, truth be told, I'm such a huge fan of so many things that BCCI has done over a period of time. But
Hmm.
where men's IPL is concerned, let me say this: BCCI stopped innovating. They
Hmm.
tell me anything new that you have seen in the IPL over the last 10 years. I can't think of anything. When the IPL completed 10 years, in fact, I had written this in a piece where I said that not a perfect 10. And
Hmm.
somebody from the VCA actually asked me why do I think so, and I said I think so because I have not seen anything new happening in the men's IPL for the longest time. You
Hmm.
come up with the same sad ideas, which is like, let's have a fan park. What do you do with a fan park? What, just put a large screen and people come eat samosas, eat pani
Hmm.
puri, and watch the match and go back home? That's not. I mean, that's not
Hmm.
how I, kind of. So again, so I BCCI has to find ways to package this.
Hmm.
Find different ways to compel people to come forward and sit down and experience and give them an experience, not just 22 women walking out on the field, 2 women batting, 11 women fielding and bowling. No, I mean, give them an experience when they come to the ground, something that they can carry home with. And
Hmm.
is the BCCI planning right now? I can't see the noise happening. So
Hmm.
for
But
me,
there is
that's
a
yeah.
disadvantage here that the WPL has. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure why the BCCI still went ahead with this. We discussed this the last time, and you mentioned quite rightly so that they wanted to obviously test it out in a more controlled environment. But for me, let me be honest. The IPL's charm was also that it traveled across the
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
right? Everybody had a home
Very true.
base. The WPL doesn't have that, so it just cannot replicate what the IPL has. And I think from a fan's point of view, I mean, you're not going to travel to Mumbai to watch the WPL match. Ultimately,
No,
only the
very true.
Mumbai crowd is going to be able to come for the matches.
Very true. In fact, I was, you're right. You're right when you say that home and away charm and that wagon traveling all over the country, that has its own effect, and
Hmm.
that would have played out beautifully had they. And to add to that, I would have said BCCI should let go of the gate money. If and so should the franchisees. Just let go of that money. Just allow
So you're
people,
saying make it free, let
make it
everybody
free.
come in.
Yeah,
Hmm.
make it free, and or probably make it free for school goers and college goers. Let them
Hmm.
come and let them enjoy women's cricket, and
Hmm.
let's see them kind of appreciate the fact that there is a space here which is building, and so will you build a fan base. So try and see what can be done from that standpoint. I can tell you MI does this beautifully, and I see them extending that bit from men's cricket to women's cricket also, where one match is reserved for a cause. right?
Hmm.
Likewise, you can build a season from that perspective. That's why I was an ardent follower of the line of thought that the IPL should be on the lines of a CSR exercise, and then work it towards becoming a business model in the future, rather than looking at it as a business model from year one. And I think that is the mindset with which the existing stakeholders should actually walk into this space, where you look at this from a long term standpoint. Today,
Hmm.
the reason why you are running this league is not the bottom line, is not the
Yeah, yeah,
check that you are
absolutely.
taking
It
on,
is to
right?
bring
So
women's cricket up to
yes,
power and give them the
yes.
stage and the
So
the visibility that it deserves.
yeah, so Shivani, from that standpoint, I'm saying today, see what can you give, see
Hmm.
what can you contribute to this ecosystem. If you contribute well today, the same ecosystem will give you a gold mine kind of a return 10 years later.
Okay, but that brings me to the content part of it. Now, you're right about the fact that every league or any kind of product needs to be packaged well for people to be able to consuming. There are some shortcomings the WPL will have. You cannot quite compare it to the IPL from the get-go. But the other issue then is the content issue. For
Right.
example, during the recently concluded World Cup, another thought process that, like I said, there were some murmurs that, not that many people are watching. This is a World Cup going on, and it was an exciting one at that level, and you've got the best of the world still playing. Ultimately, this is the pool that you've made the WPL from
Yeah,
two, right?
yeah, yeah,
Barring
yeah,
a few other additions.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if not that many people were consuming it at the World Cup level, do you think there's a concern on the WPL level that many people will consume it? And I remember Harsha Bogle, who's a very noted cricket commentator in his own right, he said that, while the game between the bat and the ball is the same, it's a completely different ball game, men's cricket and women's cricket, and
True.
men's IPL and women's IPL. And I don't think we can disagree with that, regardless of
Yeah,
maybe it
Shivani,
sounds a little bit
I can tell you.
inappropriate, but it's the truth. So, where do you think we stand on that? Is there a market for the WPL?
Okay, so let me break this down into two, three different aspects. Number one, I just say this today,
Hmm.
that at some point BCCI and WPL will have to realize that for women's cricket, it can't be T20. It has to be T10.
Hmm.
Whether this dawns upon them 3 years later, 5 years later, but it has to move from being a T20 to being a T10,
But
because
Srini, people are talking about even just regular T20 in the men's game also moving
yeah,
to
yeah.
T10.
Yes, yes, of course, that is the future. T10 is the future.
Hmm.
I have said this. But with women's cricket, you have to make it happen faster. The reason why I'm saying is because I fear that every now and then, a quality of the proceedings are going to be under constant observation and under question, and the fear of the proceedings becoming jarring. The moment you see jarring cricket out there on your television screen, the moment you say, "Arey, chodo, let me take a 15-minute break and come," that's it. I've lost my viewer from in front of the television, right? I want my television viewer to be glued in front of the set, right?
Hmm.
And if I have to have that, then the quality has to be top notch, and the quality has to be top notch. Then I need to reduce the overs, where in women's cricket, right? So these little things, how does BCCI package it? How does BCCI? So these are things that are going to matter. And yeah, you said, you talked about what Harsha said, and I don't disagree with it at all. Men's cricket is a different ball game altogether. So यहाँ पे, as he, first of all, the IPL, Shivani, is not 100% cricket. It is
Hmm.
just 50% cricket. Everything else is entertainment, glamour, business, everything about it, the package. So
No, but
how?
Srini, it's been
Yeah,
15 years. I beg to differ here. It's been 15 years. Even the
yeah.
last season, you watch. Ultimately, like I said, I am the kind of sports fan who doesn't care about anything else. I only care
Hmm.
about, whether the game is
Yeah,
being able to hook me.
yeah.
And I think the IPL has stood the test of time only because the cricket is that entertaining. The cricket
No,
is
no, of
that
course,
compelling.
of course, of course. I'm saying that nothing is being done. Okay, here is the thing: nothing is being done in that other 50%. Is probably why. See this, IPL is that popular, and that is why this 50%, this 60% already looks so big. See,
Hmm.
you have to understand, look at it from an NBA perspective.
Hmm.
Four quarters in a game, but it's obviously people are there because of the basketball. But then
Hmm.
look at NBA as an exercise. Look at NFL as
Hmm.
an exercise. We where are we thinking? Where are we going with it? In terms of the grandeur that we watch, kind of what's a Thursday night football like in America, right? So where are we headed with the whole packaging bit? And this I say from a television standpoint, right? I mean, when you
Hmm.
go to the ground, obviously it is only
It's
about
different. Yeah.
90%. It's only about the cricket, right? But when you're watching things from a television standpoint, you need something for a viewer of every age and gender, right?
Hmm.
Shivani, for you and me, probably it might just be cricket all alone. But what about if your parents are sitting, or if my 8-year-old boy is watching, kind of the show? Everybody, so it's like an Indian thali. Okay, I've
Hmm.
always said this. An
Something for
Indian,
everybody.
there is to be something, and you'll never fall short. In an Indian
Hmm.
thali, you have chapatis, you have rice, you have vegetables, dal, but there's also some space for curd, there's also some space for pickle, there's also some space for papad. It never
Hmm.
stops. So that way I'm saying that what are the ingredients that BCCI is going to add to this spectacle? And the more you
As of
add,
now,
yeah.
as of now, you're saying you don't really see that innovation coming
No,
from the
not at
WPL.
all. Not at all. I don't see that innovation in men's IPL, but because it is
Hmm.
men's cricket, it sells blindly. And we are thinking, oh yes, I mean this is the level at which men's. No, I'm saying this can go higher. This has
Hmm.
more potential. The men's IPL has more potential. But I have not seen. I'll give you an example, Shivani. I'm sorry, I'll take a minute here to give you this example. Last IPL, I remember I was at the DY Patil Stadium watching a match between Rajasthan Royals and Gujarat Titans. All right,
Hmm.
this England captain Josh Butler. Josh Butler was no, sorry, not Josh Butler, the opener. Yeah, Josh Butler.
Hmm.
Josh Butler was batting, and Rajasthan Royals were chasing. And I remember a six went to the long on, and I was very close to that space. And no crowds were allowed, so the lower tier of all the grounds used to be closed. And there used to be these huge tarpaulins with the logo of the franchisees, right?
Hmm.
And one six I remember fell on the top of that tarpaulin, and that
Hmm.
ball slowly kept creeping down. And the security guard was walking towards the ball at his own space. The fielder by then had reached the boundary wall, was leaning on the fence and waiting for the ball like this. And I
Hmm.
wondered, I said, millions are watching this right now, and this is what is going on. I mean, by now, the moment that ball went for a six, another ball should have actually been thrown on the field, and the umpire should have handed it to the bowler and said, "Come on, get ahead."
Hmm.
Like, make it compact, make it tighter. Now, if I take a pen and paper and only draw up these lists again and again, I'm sorry. I mean, then I won't stop. A BCCI official asked me last year in one of the IPL games. He said, "What do you think about this whole spectacle?" I said, "सही बात बोलूं आपको?" So he's like,
Hmm.
"हाँ हाँ बोलिए." So I said, "This looks like Mushtaq Ali with a third-rate DJ."
Hmm. Hmm.
Honestly telling you, that's my view. So
No, I
I'm
think I
saying,
get your point. I get your point that
yeah,
over the last couple of years, or at least maybe 5 years, we haven't seen any great innovation. But maybe the BCCI is thinking if it ain't broke, then why fix it, right? It still works. And I also would like to say that, over the last 3 years, we've also suffered because of the pandemic. I think the IPL hasn't been quite its own fully unleashed model. And I think this season possibly we will be the first of such seasons, in terms of post-pandemic world. But I get your point. Bottom line is that I think this could be a great opportunity for the women's cricketers themselves to answer the questions which are there on everybody's mind, which is obviously nobody expects that they're going to just suddenly start competing with the male game. But if you needed a stage to prove that this is as good as the men's game, then this is it.
yeah. I mean,
Beyond
if
this,
you
there's
wanted a
nothing
stage,
more. Yeah, you
you
wanted a
wanted a
stage, you've
stage.
got it.
This is all yours now. Go
Yeah.
ahead and make it happen. I agree with you, Shivani. And on that front, it's also a beautiful thing to have happened to an
Hmm.
ecosystem that has been in looking for recognition and looking for the right kind of space. Not now, I mean, for the longest time. I
For
mean,
the
this,
longest time.
yeah, I mean, at the turn of the century, I remember how, some ex India women cricketers fought tooth and nail with the BCCI for basic recognition for the
mm,
Indian Women's Cricketers Association to be brought under the BCCI umbrella. That in
mm,
itself was such a huge fight. So from coming all the way there to India now playing World Cups, and from pay parity to now finally the WPL happening, it's been a beautiful story. Now point is, as you correctly said, the stage is now yours. Now go and make
mm.
it happen. Go what you can make,
Yeah.
you know, that way.
Yeah, I think.
And Shivani, one bit to add here is also that is so cricketers. The responsibility of the cricketers is to, when you're in the field, give your best. Kind of
Mm,
make the tournament look good, because
mm.
quality of cricket will determine how good the package
Eventually, how good?
entire eventually
Exactly.
looks, right? And of the field, I think equally the responsibilities of the stakeholders, which is the BCCI, the franchisees, to take a call on what is being produced and at what level.
Mm,
And if that depends on how well you're
yeah,
thinking in terms of
absolutely.
marketing and
I think
packaging.
the BCCI will be able to get a little bit of the star power too, as far as the WPL is concerned. At least they will give it an attempt so that some of the star power is present. It looks as glitzy and glamorous as the IPL always does, and that was one of the USPs of the IPL. But I think we will have to be a little bit patient. We'll have to be a little bit kind to understand that the WPL, already has, as I mentioned, some limitations to begin with, and it's only a product that can expand and bloom and flower in its time. But I fundamentally believe, and Srini, you and I have had these conversations. I always say this because as a female sports journalist, I'm always asked this question also. I am firmly of the opinion, even as a woman, that you cannot get eyeballs just by saying this is female sport or female cricket.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that action itself has to be compelling enough
Yeah.
for me, for me or a man or a child or whatever, a senior
Yeah.
citizen, that action has to be compelling enough. You're competing in a
True.
space where there's so much other sports action, so much other action happening, so much entertainment possibilities. We don't live in a world where everybody's glued to their TV sets anymore, which was the case 15 years ago when the IPL started, right? Today
So
we've got OTT platforms competing for our time, and there's like content galore available. So for the WPL to garner that mind space, it will just have to be compelling, and ultimately that compelling aspect has to come from the action. You cannot, you cannot beat people to watch women's
true.
sport.
Very true.
Ultimately that
Actually,
it has to come from
anything
within.
for that matter. You cannot force
Anything for
people
that
to
matter.
consume anything that they don't want to, and
Hmm.
you give them the right thing, and you don't have to ask them to consume it
Choice,
either,
exactly.
right? So it's that's exactly that sums it up, Shivani. Where
Hmm.
it depends on what are you presenting, how well are you presenting, and are you keeping. Why am I all the time saying costs are important? Costs, as in
Hmm.
what are you spending to make this product available and possible.
Hmm.
Why am I saying costs are important is because, Shivani, at the end of the day you have to sustain, right? It's like me deciding what kind of a house do I want to live in Mumbai city,
Yeah.
right? I can live in a 2 bedroom house, I can live in a 4 bedroom house, I can live in a house that I pay a lakh rupees a month, I can pay in a house that I pay 5 lakh rupees a month. Point
It's all
is,
about sustenance.
I may look very good today, probably living in a
Hmm.
house where I pay 5 lakh rupees a month. How long can I afford to stay in that house?
No, very good point.
The,
Very good
the
point, Srini.
whole
Sustainability
question
is
is
very, very important.
sustainability is key. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, for a board like BCCI, I don't find that to be too hard a challenge. But ultimately, I come back to the same thing that sustainability will come from what kind of cricket is being produced.
Yeah, and see, Shivani, again, sustainability and how harsh can the cricket board be when sustainability is not the thing? We can find that answer in Champions League, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
cricket wasn't so bad. Yes, slightly, kind of some of the teams couldn't
Jaded,
match up,
maybe.
but
Yeah.
more or less it was still decent cricket, right? But the moment they realized that they've not been able to make the kind of money that they expected, how long do you think it took them
It
to
took.
take a call that was shut this is not working, right? So BCCI and the stakeholders can be pretty ruthless that way,
So
and
let me ask you a question. You gave me a good question to ask you. Because we do know that, we do live in a world where you have to be politically correct. You want to make the right noises. You and I have discussed this. And today, the environment in which we live in, you want to make the right noises on women's cricket or women's sport in general. Do you believe the BCCI will be cutthroat about the WPL? Let's say 3 years down the line, it does not match up, or is this something? I mean, cannot be 3 years down the line. It has to be, I don't know what, minimum of 10 years now. But do you believe the franchises and the boards are going to be cutthroat about this, or are they going to be worried about what message to send?
Yeah, I mean, right now, if they were not so worried about what is the kind of message that's going out, they wouldn't have talked about pay parity. You tell me, does women
Hmm.
cricket sell the way men's cricket does? No, it doesn't. So then, why are you even bothered about ensuring that women cricketers get paid the same amount of money as men's cricketers? Because you want to look good, no, in the market.
Hmm.
That's the
Hmm.
simple. That's the bottom line. In today, when you're looking at it from a business exercise, are you ensuring that women's cricketers get paid as much as men's cricketers in IPL? No, because you can't, because it's not sustainable. There you're doing it because, again, I mean, paisa hai to de do. But the point is, are you kind of doing it in the right? What I would want you to do, how I would want you to look at this space is that's why I use the word CSR. I know it sounds awful to use that
Hmm.
word, but
Yeah, it
why would
does.
it does? I know, but CSR was an awesome way to build a. I'm not saying do CSR. I'm not saying
Hmm.
start corporate social responsibility. Apply a CSR model, right? What if I was BCCI and I would have created this pool of whatever 8 teams, okay,
Hmm.
and I would have told the franchisees, listen, let's start with 8 very basic teams, okay, 10 very basic teams, okay. Let's competition is not good, okay. In women's cricket, let's do tier 1 and tier 2. 5 teams that manage to kind of get the right kind of players, put them in tier 1, make a tournament happen. Don't have to spend a penny extra. You don't have to just give them, but no, you wanted to earn this 4,500 crore from these franchisees, right? Instead of that, you should have just allowed the men's franchisees to start working on a development model for women's cricket, and then probably wonder 10 years later what you want to do with it. But then
I
that
get what
wouldn't
you're
have
saying.
given you a headline today, right? So,
I get what you're saying. But
yeah,
sometimes, maybe, I mean, just to play the devil's advocate, I completely get where you're coming from, and I'm not very easily offended. So I think people should not take this as some sort of a criticism of the female game or the women's game. It's just the brutal reality. And I
in fact,
hope
I'm
all our
saying this
viewers take
because I
it
want women's cricket to do
exactly.
well.
You want it in a more sustainable manner, in a
Yeah,
more, let's say, quote unquote, meaningful manner. I get what you're saying, and I hope our viewers, don't look at it the other way around. But I think just to play the devil's advocate, sometimes you also need that boost.
fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair
you
enough.
just need to change the game,
See,
and somehow just create a little bit of hysteria, and just try to at least attempt to grab eyeballs, and the WPL could be seen as an attempt towards that as well.
yeah, yeah, but remember one thing: there are no free lunches. Okay, so somebody sitting somewhere is cutting the check for whatever
That's what I
you're
asked you.
enjoying.
That's what I'm
So,
asking you. Do
so
you think the
today,
BCCI and the franchises will be cutthroat about the business of WPL, or will
that
this be sustained as purely something that they've committed themselves to do and they need to do this?
no, so this will continue to happen as long as the broadcaster continues to be on the board, on table, right?
Shows interest.
So today Viacom sees value in this whole thing. Viacom 18
Hmm.
sees value in this whole thing. Now
Hmm.
the question is, what is the BCCI going to do to make sure that the broadcaster who's cut such a big check, gets the right kind of returns from this ecosystem, right? For example, are you going to empower your broadcaster with anything? Are you going to empower your broadcaster with, you know, they may have, for example, the live feed, the production is going to be done by BCCI.
Hmm.
How accommodating are you going to be from a broadcaster's perspective? A broadcaster might say, "Listen, I want to do storytelling from during the entire 1 month of WPL. I want to do interviews on a daily basis, whatever it is. I want to
Hmm.
create content.
Hmm.
How are you going to empower the broadcaster's request? Depending
Okay.
on all that, 5 years later, the broadcaster will say, okay, boss, this space is worth reinvesting. And that's how, and if the broadcaster stays, your
You're
Pretty,
king.
pretty
I
picture
think we had
continuity.
one of our viewers comment about how Viacom is paying, 951 crore rupees for the first three seasons. And we discussed about, of course, the value that the broadcaster will make. And just as an aside, I just wanted to maybe just throw this in, Srini. We're almost towards the end of our chat. But just for perspective, so Kshitij Kumar is saying net profit will only be reached by the 15th season. I think he's talking more from the point of view of the broadcaster or the BCCI or the WPL at large. Kshitij, maybe you've joined us a little bit late, but we did discuss the model of what the franchises and how they'll make their money back at the start of this conversation. So roughly what they're spending for the first year on a year-to-year basis is what they're getting back vis-a-vis the broadcast price, the sharing model, 80-20 for the first year or so. First 3 years, right, Srini? 80-20
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
first 3 years
yeah.
broadcast rights. So 80% goes to the five franchises. And we're obviously discussing this without the sponsorship that the franchises are able to get on board for their own teams and the gate receipts, but gate receipts, frankly, out of the picture as far as the first season is concerned. But just to put this into perspective, the WPL rights go for 951 crores, right? When the IPL media rights were sold recently, Srini, it went for over 48,000 crores, and that's TV plus digital plus some select matches plus overseas rights. It
Yeah.
just goes on to show the difference that the WPL and the IPL are at. And obviously, this is not a comparison just to bring out any negativity, but just to show, where both leagues are standing today.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean,
There's no
so
comparison.
there's no comparison. See, again, it's from that aspect I was telling you. When you 48,500 when the men's
Yeah.
cricket had been sold, at some point I can tell you the broadcast rights for both the leagues are going to be clubbed. You wait and watch. There, if not today, then
Ah,
after 5 years, it is going to
yeah. I
happen.
think I think that makes more sense also. We'll wait and see whether that happens. But for now, okay, we've got another question coming in from Cricket Day Tashan. Can WPL T10 be encouraged so that we can have women's T10? Again, we just discussed this during the conversation. Srini is of the opinion that at least for the women's game, although this is being talked about all across, men's, women's, overall, that T10 is the future and can have women's T10 game at the CWG as well. I think that's a good point. Srini is of the firm belief. Srini, you can add on a little bit again that T10 is the way to go.
Yeah, I think for women's cricket perspective, right now I already see T20 is a bit jarring. So if I have to watch it for a period of for a one full month, I would rather watch a T10. It'll be more compact
Hmm.
and more
Well,
futuristic. Yeah.
more futuristic. We'll leave it at that end. Please do keep firing in your questions. You can also contact Srini on his Twitter handle. Srini, your Twitter handle is?
K Shriniwas Rao, Shriniwas.
Yes,
K
and my
Shriniwas
Twitter
Rao.
handle is Shivani Gupta _5. You can tweet in some of your questions over the next 1 week as the WPL begins. We'll be doing a lot more of these interactions. If you have a particular question, anything that you would like to see us talk about or bring you more information on, then do fire in your questions and your suggestions. Good night to everybody. Thanks a lot for watching. Srini, thanks a lot once again.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you so
catch
much,
up
man.
soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
फास्टेस्ट क्रिकेट स्कोर अपडेट्स या सबसे डिटेल्ड स्टैट्स
क्रिकेट के अंदर बाहर की खबरें,
या हेल्दी डिबेट्स
सबसे एक्यूरेट एनालिसिस,
या फैंस का क्रेज, सबके लिए एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म, क्योंकि क्रिकेट मतलब क्रिकेट नेक्स्ट।